That's what she said.
Oh, nice one, Gary. Nice one, Gary. That's a classic.
Thanks.
That's a classic. Let's just do the intro here. Just give me a minute, Gary. We'll do the intro.
How much wood could you chop if you chopped wood? Why don't you ask the wood enthusiasts?
Hi, this is Larry Woodstone, and welcome to the 14th episode. Gary, I can't believe we're on 14 episodes. Isn't this amazing?
It's flown by.
Gary, isn't this amazing?
It is amazing.
Oh my goodness.
It's 2 times 7.
You know, and the fact that we have, thousands upon thousands upon thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of listeners is truly a blessing. And it's something that you always say, you always say that it's a blessing.
I call this the 2x7 episode.
Yeah, you've been saying that. Actually, when we started to do episode 9, you said, I can't wait till the 2x7 because that's a very rare, it's a very rare sized piece of wood. And it's one of your favorite sizes.
That's correct.
It's one of your favorite sizes, and you've always said you can't wait for this episode.
Good length and a good girth.
Gary, what the audience doesn't know is that I'm calling you, and you and me talked. You and me talked earlier today. Obviously, we talked quite a bit throughout the day. Me and Gary go. We go way back. We're friends. We've been friends for years and years and years and years and years and years. And we've been talking for days and days and days about this topic, haven't we, Gary?
Ad nauseum.
Ad nauseum. Here's where it gets really strange. Today in Canada, for those of your listeners, we have listeners from all over the world, Gary. I don't know if you know that, Gary, but we have listeners from all over the world, Gary. I do a lot of the internet research, a lot of the statistics. Gary kind of sits back and just does what he knows, which is wisdom. He knows wisdom, and he does it really well.
I thought Paul sent you those reports.
No, he doesn't send me anything. I've asked him for days. I've been asking him for days, but he's an idiot. I've had to go to Lisa 3 times this week just to get the statistics updates because Paul's being an idiot.
Well, okay. Anyways, next.
Well, if you want to bring him up, Gary, we'll bring him up. But he's being an idiot, and I don't even want to talk about it. But you're the one that wants to bring him up.
Because I thought he was doing them.
He's not doing them, Gary. He's not doing his job. We've got Lisa and Steph pulling double time here. Steph's doing a great job. Steph's here today. She was doing me and Gary over the phone. Gary lives in Muskoka. This is for our audience, Gary. And, I'm back in London, Ontario area. But I had Steph come down to my house just to kind of do a set design. So I felt a little bit more comfortable doing our podcast on set. She kind of set my, and I know Lisa went up to your house and kind of set your area up. So you had a bit of a kind of an in-studio feel.
Yep.
Didn't she, Gary?
Yep.
And Lisa, you gave her some milk. She was having some milk, you said. She had about a liter of milk.
Warm milk.
She was drinking about a liter of milk tonight, you said. Isn't that strange?
That's right. That's right.
She had to warm it up, didn't she, Gary?
Well, Nancy got it for us.
And you know what? This is Gary, this is actually a bit of a segue. Because I know Nance. And Nancy, I call her Nance. We go back years and years and years. But Nance, when she warms up her milk, she uses a big pot on the stove, and she puts hot water in there, and then she puts the mug of milk in the warm water, and then it heats it up.
Which I can't believe has been illegal for a long time now.
And this is exactly why I'm calling, Gary. This is why we were talking ad nauseum about this. But here's our topic for today. And for those of you who are just tuning in and who are listening, as we said, we're both in Canada. And today, it's the 17th of October in 2018. So if you're listening to, you're listening to this decades from now because, it's kind of a cult thing. But people don't realize that today is kind of an epic, day where pots kind of have become legal for the first time.
It blows my mind. I've been using a crock pot forever.
Well, and see, this is where we kind of draw the line in the sand. Me and Gary have had, kind of difference of opinions. I'm not really sure what kind of pots it's including. I personally think it would be something like maybe an all cast iron pot, something that's a little more dangerous, due to weight and kind of they don't really have, the heat kind of runs down the handle and it gets real saucy. So I think it's kind of specific pots. But Gary says, and he's sure of this, that it kind of covers every pot has been illegal in Canada.
It's a term.
Up to this point.
So that's right.
That's what Gary says.
That's right.
And our concern is, me and Gary, obviously people that listen to the show that know that you and me go camping and we go hunting and we spend, years and years and years and years of our lives out in the woods, and largely what we do. And what I'm finding out today is that we've been breaking the law, Gary. We've been breaking the law because we've been using pots over a campfire.
Can we get in trouble for talking about it right now, or is it?
You know what, Gary? I've done a little research, and the reason I'm doing this, today is because they're not charging people. They're not going to charge people after today, so they're kind of wipe those records clean. And I think there's a little bit of freedom to it, isn't there, Gary?
If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? I hope not a weeping willow.
So I can put out my terracottas, no problem now.
Hey, Mr. Gilbert, can you say that again, Mr. Gilbert?
So can I put my terracottas out now?
What's the terracotta, Mr. Gilbert?
The terracotta pot.
Terracotta is a color.
No, it's a pot that I put my plants in.
Mr. Gilbert,
You know that?
Mr. Gilbert, terracotta is a color. What color is the pots? What color is that pots, Mr. Gilbert?
It's a brownish, looks kind of like wood.
That's right, kind of a rustic red. Yeah, that's terracotta. That's the color.
That's right. Yeah.
You've been labeling your pots according to colors. I wonder if you said if I could pull my aquas out because you've got an aqua color pot. That's a strange thing to say, Mr. Gilbert.
Well, I just call them my terracotta pots.
Well, I find that strange, Mr. Gilbert. But what I also find strange, and I know you agree with me here, Mr. Gilbert, is that that today pots are legal, and everybody's just clamoring. The news is talking about it. People are, they're saying they're smoking pots. They're grabbing their pots and they're putting them over the fires and they're smoking them, and there's probably a lot of sautéing. Even though I use pans are legal. Obviously pans are legal. They've been legal for years, and I usually sauté in a pan. But I think
lots of people are posting pictures on the internet of lots of cloud covering over the North Americas because it's legalized because of the boiling steam from the pots.
That's right. And I think a lot of Americans are going to be coming over here to buy some of our pots and pans. Because, well, obviously they had pans before, but to buy some of our pots because, and I kind of get it. Barry, because it's selfish. Pots hold a lot more than a pan does. And
for sure.
It's
well, don't you have a friend who uses lots of pots?
I do. And when I was talking to the team. I was talking to the writing team early. All the guys were at the table. We had Jason, we had Mike. Richard was there. Richard hasn't been around for probably 3 months at least. But he's back. He's on a world tour. He's in a band. You know about his band. Anyways, Richard came back. All the guys were at the table. We're sitting. We're talking. We're writing. And I said, I got a guy I know from high school, and every recess he was out there just collecting pots. He was out there saying, I want to get these pots, and I want to smoke them over a fire, and I want to he did pots every week, every recess.
He was passionate.
So he's kind of an expert, and his name's Brad Chadley. So and don't honestly, Gary. Do me a favor. His name's Brad Chadley, but don't you dare confuse it with Chad Bradley. Chad Bradley's the famous, radio host, and he doesn't want to be confused with him. So I'm just going to pick up the phone here. I'm going to give him a call. I don't know how to do this because I'm not very technical. Steph, can you show me how to? I got to do a conference call. Steph's here. Gary, Steph's here. Okay, Gary, you're going to sign out for a second, and then I'm going to sign you right back in. Okay.
Please stay on the line while your call is completed. Long-distance charges may apply.
Oh, it's going to cost me a long distance. We're just going to have to talk to production. It's going to cost me a long distance, guys. It's going to cost me a long distance.
Hello.
Oh, just one. Is this Mr. Brad Chadley?
Who's that?
Mr. Brad Chadley, I've got Gary Gilbert on the phone, and this is Larry, an old friend from yours from high school.
Who?
This is Larry Woodstone.
Chad?
No,
Larry who?
Gary, it's not Chad. It's Brad Chadley. This is Larry Woodstone from our old high school.
Were you that weird kid that drove that beaver wagon with the fake wood down the side?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say I was the weird kid, but you're right with the car. You're dead on. That was 1988 Chevrolet. What was that? It was Caprice Classic. That was an extended base Caprice Classic. That was a true classic, Brad.
Yeah, you spent like every lunch hour outside polishing and buffing that wood.
Well, of course. I mean, I was worried about sun damage, and I still am. I've still got that classic. I've still got the Gary. We have Gary Gilbert on the phone with us. He actually drives the Buick Enclave.
And I have real wood paneling.
Wow. Okay.
We're really excited to have you. And I know, Brad, I looked you up on the internet. You see, I'm pretty kind of savvy when it comes to the internet. I go on Facebook.
That's kind of creepy.
Yeah, it's a little bit creepy. And I've been doing Facebook, and I looked you up, and you actually had your cell phone on your Facebook. And what I told Gary, Brad, is that you're an expert in pots. You're kind of a pots and pans guy, and if I remember right, you would spend the majority of your recesses, chasing after pots. And I was telling Gary that you were kind of an expert because you would say, I'm going to go be smoking my pots, and you'd put it, I'm assuming you'd put them over your fire. Maybe you made a fire, maybe you brought an electric oven with you. I'm not sure what you did, but I wanted to talk a little bit.
I don't have a clue what you're talking about.
Well, what we're kind of, and me and Gary, we've been talking for days and days and days and days about this, because today is a very significant day, especially for someone like you who has such a kind of a passion for pots, because the government of Canada has went ahead and they made pots legal today. Kind of those larger holders of water or sauces, they hold much bigger capacities. And previously, we weren't legally, I guess, and this is something Gary didn't know. Did you, Gary?
No, I've been using my crock pot for years.
He's been using his crock pot for years, Brad.
I don't have a clue what you guys are talking about.
A crock pot. Brad, a crock pot's kind of, you're probably right to say this because it's been illegal apparently, but a crock pot's kind of a pot you plug in. It's like an electric pot.
You talking about like the legalization of recreational use of marijuana?
No, pots.
No.
Pots.
Oh,
Marijuana is the drug. Marijuana is the drug. We're talking government. The government legalized pots.
The government would not legalize any kind of drug. Come on.
Brad. That's classic Brad, Gary. Right there, that's classic Brad. I remember him doing this. He was sitting at the back of class. He was sitting at the back of class playing ping pong, and he was always being, he'd wear leather. He'd put his collar up a little bit, and he'd wear leather, and he'd always do nonsense. That's what he's doing right now, making jokes.
So I'm a pot expert?
Well, pots, yeah, because you had such a proclivity for pots, and I'm just kind of calling you to get some information. What kind of, now that you can legally buy pots, is there, do you like to buy Heritage Rock, or do you like to buy, Lagostina, or what do you think you would go over? Now we kind of have, free reign over all the pots.
So if these kind of pots were illegal, then how have people been selling them all this
time? That's exactly it. I think that's why the Canadian government legalized it, because it's just too big of a battle. I think that's what me and Gary have been saying. It's just been too big of a fight. And, we're wasting a lot of tax dollars, Brad Chadley, trying to fight all the, Canadian Tire sells pots every single day, Who are you going to arrest?
Where you're supposed to use proper ventilation when adding veneers and lacquers and stuff to wood, right?
Well, safety first.
Over time that accumulates,
Safety first.
Yeah.
Gary Brad Chadley, I don't know how much, I'm sure you've watched our episodes. We're slightly famous when it comes to, the Canadian world of television. But Gary always says safety first, don't you, Gary?
That's right. Safety first.
But let's go back to the pots. Do you have any insight, Brad Chadley? Do you have any insight about the pots? Do you have anything you want to say about the pots?
I think it's, I don't even know where to begin for you two. You've been reading articles about the legalization of
I think what happens...
they want the tax money from it now. That's what I'm getting. Which is good. And that tax money can go back to our natural resources, like wood.
Gary, this in the rainforest and stuff, right?
Gary, this is one of those things where people are getting starstruck. He's kind of struggling with words a little bit, and this isn't something we're, trust me, it's something we're used to. You can't walk down the sidewalk anymore these days. But I want you to know you're safe, Brad. I don't think you're going to be.
If you're going to be a chatty Cathy, I'm not going to talk over you or anything. That's cool.
That's great.
I'm just kind of listening.
That's great. That's great, Brad. Because I want you to know that you're going to be safe. I don't think the police are going to be charging people because of your proclivities to pots earlier in your years. I just want you to talk about it. Tell me about your feelings. You're legal. You're legal. You can saute in the big boys. You can get a cast iron big boy and saute your face off. So just tell me about that. What do you think about that?
I think you guys need to understand that, like, marijuana and pot, it's all the same thing.
I don't see why we're talking about drugs.
It's a slang word, and the government has, like you said, legalized a drug.
I never said they legalized a drug.
He doesn't get it there yet. I don't think he does.
What? are you saying that pots are a drug? There's kind of an addiction to pots? Is that what you're suggesting?
So you don't think the government would legalize a drug?
No.
Even still,
do you think caffeine's a drug?
I think we're a little bit off topic here, Mr.
Or maybe alcohol?
Chadley. Mr. Chadley, we're talking about today that they've legalized pots.
Right. Marijuana, pot, Mary Jane.
Are you talking about a friend here? Oh my goodness. Are you trying to rat somebody out here, Brad Chadley? Mary Jane's been buying pots?
Did they use pots?
Brad Chadley?
Man, no, I don't even know how else to explain this to you guys. Maybe you guys need to go to something like, maybe we can open your eyes to the Urban Dictionary. You should Google Urban Dictionary.
Oh, Brad, I've been doing a lot of Google. I'm quite savvy on the internet, and Gary will tell you this. I've been on the internet for years and years and years and years. I've got an Instagram account. I've got Facebook accounts, and our community, Wood Enthusiasts, we have webisodes. So we're quite savvy on the internet. So
I have a BlackBerry.
Yeah.
I imagine there's even an Urban Dictionary definition for a wood enthusiast.
That's right. That's something that we've been really pushing. But it sounds to me like I think you're standing a little bit of nerves, worried that maybe your proclivity for pots, maybe your collection would get taken away. And I'm assuming, you've probably been collecting for 2 decades, and I'm assuming you've got room fulls of pots, that you're worried that, I just want you to know that today I don't think they're going to be arresting people.
Well, every once in a while you just got to kind of totally clean out, right? Just out with the old, in with the new, and just kind of let go of some bad habits and pick up some other bad habits. That's
so refreshing to hear.
That's why I use X-Lax sometimes.
Yeah,
right.
Gary has a lot of diarrhea. Gary goes through a lot of diarrhea. And that's something he struggles with, Brad Chadley.
Well, I imagine the X-Lax wouldn't help that situation.
Yeah, he likes it.
I poop in a pot sometimes.
Gary likes to use pots illegally previously today. He likes to fill them with water and put a towel over his head and just kind of breathe in all that steam. Do you ever do that do you ever do that, Brad Chadley? Do you ever breathe in steam?
Yep. Yeah, I really don't like being all stuffed up.
Yeah,
plugged up.
So you think now that pots are legalized, do you think more people will kind of take up that practice? We call it steaming. We like to call it steaming, Brad.
I would imagine so. They say you can do it anywhere in a public area where you can smoke a cigarette, so you'll probably see pot use everywhere.
Well, you'd have to have a heat source to boil a pot, so you're kind of limited to in-house.
Well, you can use little lighters, or they even have little, they call them vaporizers, and they've got like little butane or battery charged. You don't even need a large heat source like in the olden days.
Well, how would you cook your noodles? Brad?
How would I cook my noodles?
Yeah, you see the nonsense there? How are you going to cook your noodles in the pot if you don't have much of a heat source? You're just going to have cold water.
You got to use a really small amount of pot, and just like a small little glass pot to use with it.
Mr. Chadley, I think
a little softer.
Yeah, kind of something like that. Yeah, a little more along that line.
Okay.
Part of me gets really confused, and I don't want to be, as you said earlier, I tend to be a bit of a chatty Cathy, and I've got the entire production crew here, Brad, is kind of saying, slow down, there's something happening here, Larry. There's kind of a disconnect. There's a miscommunication here, and they're asking me, there's a little piece of paper here they're holding up saying, trying to figure out what's going on here, Larry.
See, the nice thing about this is you got to remember too that it's all natural too, right?
Well, my pots are.
I know you're big into the wood thing and the all natural and natural resources, and hey, this is a big one of them, right? Straight out of the ground, not like these pharmaceuticals or other stuff that's manufactured. This is just straight up, just like God put it there in the Garden of Eden.
No, Gary, I think he's misunderstanding us because pots are man-made. Most of mine are either steel or cast iron.
That's right. I've seen plastic pots.
I've never gone to the bush, and believe me, Brad, I've been in the bush the majority of my life. I've never gone to the bush and found a piece of pot and just standing there with a big handle.
Have you ever actually watched someone make one, or are you taking other people's words for it?
No, I actually go to a lot of places where they make pots because I like to watch them be made.
Oh, really?
I live next to the village potter.
So, I just think there's a disconnect here because I don't know.
Guys, we're talking about drugs. Marijuana.
No, you're talking about drugs.
The same thing.
You're talking about drugs. The government's talking about pot.
Idiots. This is ridiculous.
You're talking about.
Stop wasting my time, especially tonight of all nights.
Gary, what's happening?
Please.
What is Gary? Are you there?
He's a little high strung.
What in the dark side of the moon just happened?
I do not know. I thought we were having a lovely conversation.
Well, I'm going to shave the backside of a squirrel. I can't sit down and try to sort any of this out, Gary. He was getting Gary. He got real spicy.
He did. You know what? He could cook something on a pot, and the steam would calm him down. I think.
He sounded like a real idiot at the end there, Gary. He's trying to tell me the government's trying to legalize drugs.
That's ridiculous. I mean, I like Tylenol. That's a good drug.
I'll tell you right now, I don't think we've got a very smart leader. That guy, his only job before he was prime minister, he was he's a substitute drama teacher.
Yes.
Gary.
So he's acting. Gary,
he was a substitute drama teacher.
Right.
So
he was acting.
Well, people don't understand. People that aren't from Canada, they think I'm joking. Well, you can go ahead and Google it. We've got a prime minister named Justin Trudeau who, before he was the prime minister, he was a substitute drama teacher, and it sounds like Brad Chadley's trying to tell me he's trying to make drugs legal. That doesn't make any sense.
He wouldn't do that.
That doesn't make any sense, Gary.
No, I would bypass. No.
Gary, I'm getting a little fired up right here. I spent a lot of time trying to research Brad Chadley and trying to get his information to get some high quality tips about pots, and I'm a little disappointed.
So I'm a little upset because that's almost slandering our prime minister, and our prime minister is the head of our country, and to say it's not the head of our country would promote because what you permit, you promote. So if he's permitting drugs, he's promoting it. So that doesn't even make sense.
Gary, oh my goodness. Gary, I want to repeat something you just said, and I don't even know if you heard it. It came out of your mouth. It was absolutely gorgeous. You said, what you permit, you promote.
That's correct.
Oh my goodness, Gary. Oh my goodness. Yep. Let's just take a moment here, Gary, because I've told people, for years and years and years, as long as I've been, knowing you, and as long as I've kind of been in this community, I've been telling people that you're a smart man. You're a very wise man. And in this episode, we kind of stepped away from wood for a second because we talked about something national that's happening, kind of a political speak, kind of something political. And Gary, you wrapped this segment up with something so profound that it's, I'm needing a little time to kind of hang on to it. I need some time to
break away.
I need to process, Gary. I'm not going to break away, Gary. I'm going to give people something here. We've got a clip here from Reverend Friend. Reverend Friend has he sent us a few things because he's been writing, and he's been reading, and he's been cataloging, and he's been categorizing, and he's been Pinteresting and Facebooking and blogging and vlogging, and he's really been doing a lot of things. And
he's fantastic.
He's incredibly fantastic, and that's what you don't understand. That's what nobody understands. That's what nobody gets. Right. Nobody gets that. So I'm just going to play a little piece here because we're coming out of something very heavy. We were just on the phone with somebody attacking the prime minister. For the Americans listening, that's similar to our president. And nobody over there would ever insult the president. No. I watch the news there, and people have nothing but respect for each other. The way they uphold each other, and they speak highly of the president, no matter what. They say we support him, we've got his back, and he's going to lead us into the future. And And right now, I have someone like Brad Chadley, not to be confused with Chad Bradley, who's a famous radio host. Chad Bradley is. So Brad was on the phone, and he's starting to kind of denigrate our prime minister, saying that he's legalizing drugs. That's a stupid statement, Gary.
Yep.
That's a stupid statement. So let's listen to Josh here. Let's cut to Josh. We'll be right back after this moment with Reverend Josh Friend.
Sleepers, a poem by David Black. A sleeper, they used to call it. 4 passes with the giant round saw, and you had a cross tie. 7 inches by 9 of white oak. At 200 pounds, nearly twice my weight. Ready to break, finger or toe. Like coffin lids, these leftover slabs. Their new sawn faces turned gold and brown as my own in the hot Virginia sun, drying toward the winter. And the wood saw. And on the day of that chore, I turned over a good thick one, looking for a balance point, and roused a 3-foot copperhead, golden brown like the wood. Disdaining the shoe, it muscled across, each rib distant. Each rib distinct as a needle stitching leather, heavy on my foot as a cross tie.
Gary, do you want to do the welcome back, Gary?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, Gary.
Welcome back, everybody.
Oh, that was Gary here on Wood Enthusiasts. That was Gary. Gary is one of our, he's kind of one of our, we call him kind of a foreman, a foreman with Wood Enthusiasts. And we're so glad to have you on these shows, Gary. You've been a real turning point. You've been a real turning point for us, Gary. But I want to say that moment with Josh, those things, I call him Josh because we've been friends for years and years and years and years, but his name is Pastor Reverend Friend Josh Friend. And aren't those beautiful words?
Touching. I like the middle part the most.
Aren't they beautiful words, Gary? In the middle? Weren't those beautiful words in the middle?
Yes, and he drove it home at the end.
He just brought it home, didn't he, Gary?
He did.
Wow. Those are moments you can't get back, can you, Gary?
Like a field of dreams.
Well, you can rewind it. If people wanted to, they could scroll backwards and hear it again if they wanted to. So they can rewind it. They can get it back. So, can't they, Gary?
Yep.
I'm sitting here and the team knows this because on break we chatted a little bit about. I'm just kind of a little bit bothered by some of the information we've had today, but I'm just going to let that go. I'm going to let it slide. I'm not going to let his claws kind of hook into me here. But I did want to bring something up, and I know that you're getting there. I know, Gary, when I say you're getting there, you're getting close. But Glenn was part of our team, and we just really haven't heard from him, Mr. Clutterbucks.
Yeah.
Mr. Clutterbucks, he likes to gallivant through the forest and water adult trees, but we haven't. He's been ghosting us. He's been ghosting us. But I wanted to tell you something, Gary.
What's that?
I know that he's blocked you and he's blocked me on his account, but I have an old friend that he doesn't know that we're connected. It was a mutual friend, and he went onto Facebook for me and looked at some of Glenn's pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Glenn's been in Italy.
His dad paid, no doubt.
Well, Glenn doesn't have any money. His dad's, but Glenn's in Italy. Gary,
huh.
What do you think about that, Gary?
I hope the moon hit his eye.
It's a pizza pie type thing, isn't it? Is that what you're saying, Gary?
I am.
Yeah, but I'm frustrated by that too. This has kind of been a heavy episode because I'm frustrated that, Glenn's not reaching out, and we've reached out, and I know, Gary, I've asked you to text him multiple times, and I'm sure you have, and I've asked you to call him, and I know you have. And I've asked Nance to call him, I've asked Bernice to call him, and we've talked to Lucille, and Lucille says now is not the time. Now is not the time. And I don't even know what that means, Gary. But we're hoping he comes back to the set because, like you said, what did you say about the POTS thing, Gary?
So he should be excited that we now have legalized pots so that he can carry more amounts of water in larger containers, and he can boil water now on the spot and not have to hide it.
Because he's the guy that would. He's the type of guy that would have followed the letter of the law. He wouldn't have been using pots like we were because he's very appropriate.
That's right.
He's very appropriate.
So I would like to hear his passion about that.
He's very passionate, Gary, and he's very appropriate.
Yes.
So I just want to, Gary, if you don't mind, just give me a second here. I want to talk to our audience. Something you guys might not know, and Gary, this is something you actually probably don't know, is that iTunes, they will promote our podcast. They'll promote our podcast and our community, as a result. They'll be promoting our community if people can do reviews. And if people do, likes, if they rate us with 5 stars and do some reviews for us, they'll actually help promote us. And I just really need your help. And Gary, I know that you've been saying, we've reached and we've touched nearly 100,000 people, on per episode. And Gary, you always say, but how can we reach more? Don't you, Gary?
I want to touch more, for sure.
He wants to reach more. He wants to reach out. He wants to touch the hearts of those who need to know more about wood. And again, this episode's been a little bit light on wood. So Gary, I'm just going to ask you what your favorite piece of wood is.
Oh, it's hands down to mahogany.
It's always mahogany. I knew you were going to say that, Gary. Gary, I knew you were going to say that before you even said the words. I knew you were going to say mahogany because that's what you've been saying for decades.
Yep.
And why is that, Gary? Why is it mahogany?
The depth, the warmth, the meatiness to it.
There's a richness to the color. There's a richness. Isn't there a richness to the color, Gary?
There absolutely is, yes.
There's kind of that soft burgundy feel, isn't there, Gary?
I like spinning it on my lathes, too.
Oh, Gary loves his lathe. Gary recently got a bigger lathe. He got a much bigger lathe. It's probably got, it looks like it's got about an 8-foot chuck. He can draw a piece 8 feet long there. So we are really trying to get people to comment and to rank us on their iTunes, because that really helps us out, Gary, and that's important to me. And secondly, sometimes, Gary, I have people saying how much they love your voice. People are saying, oh, that Gary's voice it's right on par. It soothes them. It soothes them. That's what they say, Gary. But what they don't realize is that your face is just as soothing. And a lot of people don't know how to see you, Gary. And what I said is watch our episodes.
Yeah, sorry.
Watch our episodes. You can go to YouTube. You can just type in Wood Enthusiasts. You can actually go to youtube.com/Wood Enthusiasts and look us up, and you'll see Gary's face, and you'll see my face, and you'll be able to kind of interact with us and see a lot of Mr. Clutterbucks too. And hopefully we can connect with Mr. Clutterbucks very soon. I'm calling out to him now to see if maybe he can respond. But I'm going to let Gary go here because this episode hasn't really gotten where we want. We might not even release it, Gary. After that conversation with Brad Chadley, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, I would only deface our country.
I might just tell Paul. Sure. I might tell Paul just delete it, because
okay.
He'll try to edit it to make me look like an idiot, and he's the idiot. So maybe we'll just delete it and just move on, because it's been frustrating. This was drugs. I don't like to talk about drugs on this show, Gary.
No, I think we should end it by singing the anthem.
That idiot, Brad, he's a real idiot. When we talked to him on the phone, he said, God made it. Well, why don't you ask him to go smoke some poison ivy?
That's a good point.
Why don't you ask him to go smoke some poison oak?
Yep. You keep going.
Yeah. Why don't you ask him to roll up some weeds and smoke that? He tries to act like just because it's grown in nature, radiation is natural. Why don't you go dip your face in radiation?
Oh, we're talking about drugs still.
Well, because he's the idiot.
Oh, okay.
Brad's an idiot.
No, I thought we were talking about pots.
Brad was trying to tell us pots was drugs, and then he tried to say drugs grow by nature, so it's just natural. That doesn't make any sense. That's just an idiot thing to say. There's a lot of things that are natural. The sun's natural. Go push your face in the sun.
So I went to Urban Dictionary as you were talking there, and Mary J means marijuana.
That's the drug. That's the drug. That's the drug he was talking about. Yeah.
But
just a minute, Gary.
Because how does pot and
Gary, 1 second. Just repeat that. Just 1 second. Paul, just don't even bother recording this. We're just talking now. We're not going to go air with this. Just press stop, Paul. Just press stop. We're just talking. He's an idiot. Everybody's an idiot tonight, Gary. Go ahead, Gary. Sorry.
No, I can't, it doesn't even make sense so Mary J, marijuana, makes sense. It spells Mary J. But pot and marijuana, they're two different things completely. So it makes no sense that they would say that it's the same thing or a euphemism for each other, right?
Well, that's the confusion, because I'll tell you what, I bet that Brad's had some of those illegal drugs, and it's melted his brain. He's trying to call something marijuana cannabis. He's trying to call that a pot.
You're right.
That's stupid is what it is. That's stupid.
You're right.
Gary?
I feel bad for you.
Okay, Gary, let's just end this. I'm going to end the conversation. Paul's already pressed stop. We'll just talk later.
Will do.
See you, Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you. Okay.
Rub fresh and you'll feel real good. And rub slow just like you know you should. Just get a little grit and get a little wood. And rub fresh just like you know you should. Well, I'm a wood enthusiast. I love to look and build and cut and have sniff. And if you ask me, what do I love best? Well, I'll tell you wood, 'cause I'm an enthusiast. Sycamore, oak, aspen, pine, and fir, hemlock, maple, willow, dogwood, and poplar, ash, hickory, beech, tamarack, and cedar, hawthorn, jackpine, buckeye, cherry, and birch. 'Cause I'm a wood enthusiast. I love to look and cut and build and have a sniff. And if you ask me, what do I love best? Well, I'll tell you wood, 'cause I'm an enthusiast. 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 Enthusiast.